Greetings and welcome back to CS295 Web Development 2. This is week 8, PHP again. We just finished updating, and last week we did the selecting and inserting. So we've pretty much with this have all the pieces to the puzzle, right? We've reminded about JavaScript, we talked about the basics, we talked about forms, the rest of the programming, what's the difference between the JavaScript. We went into databases real quick to just show you the commands, and then we showed you how to integrate those commands into PHP. So this is the last one before we'll show you one more thing next week, which is sessions, which will allow you to actually remember information, right? You see, everything we've done is like post it, and then it's there for that. Like we refresh a post page, it breaks. Again, depending on how you have it coded. So with that, right, we're gonna show you, and you can kind of use gets, but if they delete that or they go straight there, like again, we'll kind of show you that next week. So real quick, we'll finish deleting. Now I did go ahead and put together a decent kind of example for you on this one, but let's go ahead and look at what we're working with. So I create a new page. We're gonna delete the entry. We can see that I have this, but what we're seeing is I'm building a drop-down menu. And again, there's many different ways I could create a form, blah, 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 like lots of different ways to do this for each of them, and just depending on what you're trying to do. So in this case, though, I'm going to pick from one of those to delete. So if it's a post, go ahead and do the delete. If it's not a post, then we're going to go ahead and show everything. So now I've copied some of this from this, so I need to update it, delete. We're going to run the delete, which is this one, right? We're on delete. So we're going to run the delete PHP. It's still going to be a post. We're making a connection. Now, I did separately, really only one of these codes is going to run, so you can see, but my PDO, and this one just uses PDO. So I connected the database. I'm selecting everything. This is pretty much this first page, except for, as I was starting to show you last one, I added a select statement, gave it a name of ID, so that means when I go here, I'm actually going to be looking for ID, and I only have one now because of how I wrote this, because I don't want them to type anything. It's just this drop down. So whatever the ID is what they're going to do. Now again, maybe I should call it something different so you don't get confused with this is ID, this is ID, this is ID. This is the name of it, so it's going to use it here and here. So I made the name of ID, but it's also remember the name of the column. So we're going to loop through the results, and then we're going to print the value and then get the ID, because the value, if you have a value, that's what's going to get sent. So whatever's selected, the value of it, that's what's getting sent. And this is what shows up, so we can see the option, and then you end the select form. And notice that's outside of the for, so the for loop has the whole option code, but then you create the form, create the select, do the for loop, and it's important to understand the order of this, right? And again, that's why I haven't really gone over all the stuff. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but I did want to point some of this stuff out just in case you want to get started on it. So you close the option, select form, close it all, just make sure you do it all in the right order. Now let's jump to the page, because I have this. But again, here's kind of the magic here is, remember, this is the point of PHP. It creates this all. So I have my select form, its name is ID, but then see how the value is that correct ID, and then what's shown is what the item 2 is. So when I click on more data, then that's what's going to be sent. So I do need to go ahead and also echo out the submit part of it, right? So I like using the single quote, so I can do double quotes inside. So input type equals, this is why I have the double quotes to be able to do this, submit, and then value equals double quotes, because that's what I'm used to doing in HTML. And then you just close it there, and then delete. Okay, so let's save that. And let's go back to this and refresh it. We don't really need this open anymore. So now I can pick any of these. So let's get rid of data 2. So in theory, well, when I run this, it's not going to show this anymore. In fact, it won't show anything. This is where, again, you're going to do the research. It's going to run this command. Let's just double check it real quick. My PDO, SQLite data, correct database. Oh, there we go. See, I already found an error. Delete from test where ID equals whatever ID was sent, and then execute SQL. All right, so it looks like the code is good. All right, again, really just understanding the SQL. That's why I did the whole individual SQL commands, because once you kind of understand the connections, and you're probably hopefully going to use a different connection anyway. Really, it's understanding how to integrate the SQL command into it. So again, let's do it one more time, just in case. I already refreshed it, so let's delete more data 2. It went away, which is expected because it's here right now. It was a post, it had all that information. So more data 2 should be gone, and there we go, it worked. Also, if I refresh this, it's no longer a post, and more data 2 is not in there, and I can keep deleting items from that as needed. And again, that's probably not necessarily how you would do this, but again, it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. But I did want to show you this before we move on, how to actually grab these pieces and interact back and forth. And you can do this for updating, you can do this for everything. Again, I could have an input, and that's why I said if this was an update, it'd be better to have each of these as their own little form. Because if you have them all, if you have all of these updates, right, and these are all updates and there's individual inputs, it's going to grab all that data, right? You have to make individual names for all of them. But remember, I told you if you have one form, and I showed you that with the original form when we were talking about the form, right? I can have this all have the same username if each of these, it's only going to run whatever's in this. So if I were to loop through, create a form for every single one, you could do that for like an update. Again, lots of different ways to do this. That's not necessarily what this class is about, but again, hopefully giving you some ideas on going forward, building what you need to build, do your research, figure out what you want to do, and then go with that, right? So again, next week we'll go over sessions, which is a kind of last little piece that ties in and really showed you most of the key pieces of PHP by that point. And then again, you'll have your final project to work on, and you'll start it next week, where you kind of tie this all and show that you can do it. But again, from the standpoint of just being able to show you understand the basic PHP. That's all I have for this week. We'll see you next week.